Welcome to Fearless Finances, where I try to take the fear out of your finances. Today we're having a new kind of TED Talk. There's a gentleman named Ted that I mentioned in a video a few weeks ago who seemed to understand the concept of this channel. We believe in 3 fundamental principles about your finances that we need to have some good strategy and financial literacy. Things about what to do with your investments, how to save more, how to manage debt, whole host of things. But number 2 is politics matter. They surely do. Our government can either help put money in our pockets or they can take it away. And as a result, it matters very much. And point number 3, our faith, and really, this faith really only matters if it changes us and helps us see things through a different lens. A lens that tells us that everyone matters, those with money and those without. And skin color doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter. And if somebody wants to have a certain pronoun, that doesn't matter either. These 3 strategies are fundamental to any good financial plan. And I thought a few weeks ago when Ted and I had a little chit chat in the comments section on a YouTube video, I thought he understood that. When I essentially said that I made certain decisions based on faith, and he claimed he had faith too. Now, I will tell you, there is a supreme difference between believing in something and also applying the principles of that belief. Are you tracking me? And the thing is some people have the belief, but it doesn't change how they operate in the world. It turns out Ted's one of those people. When he saw another Trump video of mine, he suggested that I would do better if I didn't do that anymore because he didn't find it important. Thank you, Ted. But if I needed your advice, I would have asked for it. And see, I'm not here to help people like Ted. Ted was hoping to get good ideas from a Wall Street insider, somebody who'd worked for the investment firms, which I surely have done. But if I was interested in helping Ted, I'd still be working for those Wall Street firms instead of making YouTube videos to help you. You see, it's everyday Americans that I want to help. I want to help everyday Americans get on their feet and find the greatest financial future that you can. It appeared to me that Ted had quite a bit of privilege. And when I used that word, of course, he didn't really like it too much. But I have to say, this is what gave me the first clue that Ted was privileged. Point 1, he didn't think discussing politics were important. You see, that usually comes from somebody that politics doesn't affect them negatively. Ted is likely a white man who never needed DEI. By the way, ladies, DEI is for everyone. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the 2 groups that benefit the most by DEI happen to be white women and veterans. Please don't be anti-DEI. It's not helpful. It's not helpful at all. Here was clue number 2. That Ted came from some privilege. He chose to share with me this antiquated thing of undoing and unraveling Social Security. That if people got to keep their own tax dollars from Social Security, they'd do far better. This was floated around in early 2000 when George Bush was in before. And the people who really drive this idea are business owners. You see, they pay the other half of the tax. But it also tells me that Ted doesn't know what it's like to be somebody who's making $45,000 a year, afford their living expenses, and then try to save enough to fully fund their own retirement without a social safety net like Social Security. Are you with me? He also went on to say that Trump had wanted to not tax tips and overtime and whatever other gimmicky tax thing he wanted to do. He claimed that this proved that Trump cared about us. I say it does not. The reality here is this. The two groups that he's referring to is not all workers. Like, that wouldn't help me with my income, and I'm surely middle America too. And if Trump truly cared about actually helping Americans, he wouldn't be gutting certain programs that are actually there to protect us. And he'd also be looking at tax cuts to the rich who can clearly afford it more than just the people who get tips. You see, Ted decided to just preemptively say the only answer here is Trump actually cares. No, there's many more answers. Like, how about this one? He used it as a gimmick to get elected. I think it's very important for you to know that during the most prosperous era in the United States, we had a 90% tax rate on the rich. 90%. And we use those extra tax dollars to help the middle class through the GI Bill. The GI Bill helped provide housing, health care, business loans, and education. It also helped build for us an infrastructure that people like Jeff Bezos use, driving around all those packages. It really did a lot to help the United States. But starting with Ronald Reagan, we started to do some deep tax cuts for the rich. And since that time, about 50 trillion of wealth moved from the bottom 90% to the top 1. And by the way, the full national debt is 36 trillion. One might also look at this then and say, rich people borrowed all this money to make them rich. Because after all, had we not done this, moved this 50 trillion to them, if they had not gotten this 50 trillion, we could pay off the debt. So while people like Ted think that people like Trump care about you, that is not true. What they really want to do is keep grifting from the federal government. And they're using lies to do it. Here's a letter from Rick Scott that I received after I sent all 53 Republicans a little note about what I thought of how Donald Trump treated President Zelensky. Mortifying. This 4 trillion he cites here is a bold-faced lie. He claims that 70% of the outlays from the federal government, we have no idea where they went. There's been no proof from DOJ of anything that they've said like this. They have not proven any fraud because, after all, fraud is illegal. There should be criminal cases. It's fraud. They have not cited that this is actual abuse or that any of these expenses are actually unnecessary. Even bigger than any of that, it's Congress's constitutional right to draft the budget. A budget was drafted and signed by a president. None of this should be cut without Congress's approval. I have a vote, you have a vote, and you know what? Ted has a vote, one vote, but each of our votes matter. So if you also believe that your vote matters, I'm going to give you a few resources. One of them is something called 5 Calls. It's an app that will help get you in contact with your legislators. They'll also give you scripts and things that are going on that you can call them about if it's something that worries you. I'm going to also put a link below in the description in the little doobly-doo that I use to contact representatives who are not mine. This is how I got a hold of 53 U.S. senators who need to do something about the out-of-control administration of Donald J. Trump and the Project 2025 takeover. When I say Project 2025, if you're unfamiliar with that, I'll also provide a link for you below on that. Here's the final thing that I'm going to say about Ted and people who have politics like Ted. We are very blessed to live in a democracy. And with a democracy comes a responsibility. Your vote matters. And it's really important that we're all educated enough about what's going on politically to make wise choices. Right now, many people who are in the Republican Party are lying to you, just like Rick Scott and Elon Musk. Again, I'll put proof sources below for you. I recommend that you follow people like Heather Cox Richardson. She's not a reporter, she's not a politician. She's a historian who drafts a letter to Americans every day telling us what's going on and citing proof sources. So I'll link her below too. If you have any other questions for me, please cite them. I'm definitely interested in hearing from you. And this is the thing, we are all in this together. And we can make a difference when we're united. Ted's got his team, but we've got a better one. See you back here soon. Talk to you later.